This is David Muir reporting.
Good evening. We're coming back on the air at this hour because there's been a development in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie.
I want to share a detail that is truly chilling. The FBI doesn't return to an investigation's starting point 6 weeks later to re-canvass a neighborhood unless they've narrowed in on a very specific target. They are not acting without direction. This is not simply a routine procedure. When federal agents circle back, it indicates the case has taken a sharp, new focus, one that now points to a particular address, a residence immediately adjacent to the Guthrie home. If this proves true, it completely upends our understanding of how this crime was orchestrated. This was not planned from a distance, nor from a vehicle on the street, but from inside the community itself, a hidden vantage point in plain sight. Everything I'm presenting has been sourced and confirmed. We are not dealing in speculation here. We will cover only the known facts, their implications, and why the Bureau's latest actions are more telling than most reports have suggested. Let's begin. The victim is Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, mother of Savannah Guthrie, an anchor for the Today Show. She was last sighted on the evening of January 31st, 2026, after being dropped off by her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni. Her garage door activated at 9:48 p.m. and closed again at 9:50 p.m., which was the last sign she had returned home. She was reported missing the next morning after failing to join a virtual church service. Blood discovered on her front porch was confirmed by DNA to be hers. Footage from her doorbell camera shows a masked, armed person at her door at 1:47 a.m. In that same time frame, cameras throughout the neighborhood went dark. Then, at 2:28 a.m., the monitoring app for her pacemaker lost its connection. This was the final electronic signal from Nancy Guthrie inside that house. These are the foundational details most of you already know, but there is a critical element, present from the start, that has been largely glossed over. This abduction demanded an incredible amount of specific, private information about Nancy Guthrie's life, including her daily schedule, the exact placement of her cameras, and even which foliage was close enough to a lens. It also includes her Apple Watch, not only that she owned one, but its precise and inconspicuous location within her home. They knew what she wore at night, how her gait worked, and her personal habits. Former FBI agent Steve Moore put it bluntly: the person at that door was certain Nancy was on the other side. This was no crime of chance, and that fact is incredibly important. Tucson's Catalina Foothills area is not the kind of community where an outsider could gather so much intelligence. The area consists of single-story desert homes on large lots, separated by low walls and native plants. The streets are not thoroughfares for general traffic. Residents recognize every car. An unfamiliar vehicle parked for 20 minutes would raise alarms. Therefore, the question that should have been the focus from day one is simple. How could someone learn all these details without being seen? The FBI may now have that answer. On March 17th, NewsNation correspondent Brian Enan, who has been on this story in Tucson longer than nearly any other journalist, reported a development on his show that merited much more notice than it got. Federal investigators were back in the Catalina Foothills, the area, and now they were asking very direct questions about a resident who left before Nancy vanished. Not after she was gone, but before, just prior to February 1st. Enton chose his words with care. He reported that agents were again going door to door, focusing on a neighbor who moved right before Nancy disappeared. He didn't want to overstate the link, but confirmed it's a lead the FBI is actively following. When an experienced journalist says actively asking about, regarding a neighbor who left just before a kidnapping, you pay attention to that detail. It's a thread the Bureau is clearly pulling. So, why would an empty house matter so much? Retired Pima County SWAT leader Bob Krija, who for decades ran ops that demand you think like your target, offered Parade magazine the most logical explanation yet. He explained that investigators would see a place like that, an empty home, sitting silent, just recently vacated, as a potential base of operations for the perpetrator or perpetrators. It's a plausible reason to be in the area. Consider what that means for this particular neighborhood. You can't just linger on a street corner in the Catalina Foothills. You can't just sit in a parked car for 40 minutes watching a home. You would stick out immediately. But with a key, a lease, or any excuse to be at a house 3 doors down, you're invisible. You can wave to the person walking their dog. You give a nod to the gardening crew. You look like you belong there. And from that spot, you can observe. You can find your window of opportunity. You can map out which bush is near enough to the camera to block it without even leaving the porch. Krija took it a step further. He explained to Parade an empty property could also be used to install surveillance gear, devices placed to record the neighborhood's activity on a timer, building a profile of Nancy's routines over days or weeks, all without raising any suspicion. That's the kind of pre-crime planning you don't get from a simple drive-by. Now, here's another layer that makes this even more significant, one that hasn't received enough notice. Here is the layer that adds even more weight, and it is one that still has not gotten the attention it deserves. Reporter Dave Mack, on the show Crime Stories, said that the tenants in a house near Nancy's left immediately after her February 1st disappearance. To quote him exactly, "They were there until the kidnapping and then gone." A neighbor, Laura, who spoke with Brian Enton during his reporting, backed this up separately. She informed Enton that there was a rental close by, and its occupants had left within days. Of Nancy's disappearance, she knew because their car was suddenly gone. So now we have 2 departure timelines in the vicinity that police are actively piecing together. A person who moved out before February 1st, the empty house the FBI is asking about, and renters who moved out after, confirmed by a reporter and a neighbor. The FBI is returning to residents, asking what they witnessed and when in relation to both properties. And there's another piece. A neighbor, Aldine Meister, a 30-year resident of the Catalina foothills, stated publicly that roughly 3 weeks before Nancy vanished, she noticed an unfamiliar man in the area, hiding, with his face hidden under a hat, intently watching NY's residents for quite a while, as he passed along the street 3 weeks prior to February 1st. This places the event right in the timeline. Authorities have made specific inquiries to the community regarding January 11th, a day the FBI pointedly asked residents to examine their surveillance recordings for. The Guthrie family echoed this request in their own, appealed to KVOA, pleading with Tucson locals to review video from January 31st, the first hours of February 1st, and particularly the night of January 11th. ABC News was the first to report, based on anonymous sources, that a doorbell camera photo from the FBI was taken on a day separate from the rest, implying the person of interest might have been positioned at New York's doorway prior to February 1st. An insider confirmed this independently to Fox News Digital. The Puma County Sheriff's Department immediately refuted this claim, saying the photos lack time data and labeling the idea as mere conjecture. Nanos personally told NBC News he couldn't verify the pictures were from separate dates, yet authorities were also concurrently making public appeals about January 11th, and a focused request like that is never made without a compelling reason. Ex-FBI agent Jennifer Coffendafer interpreted the family's mention of January 11th. Posting it suggests a dry run by the suspect before the kidnapping. She described it as a dangerous gamble, noting that had he been seen on January 11th, Nancy might have been spared. January 11th, weeks of watching. February 1st. This was no crime of opportunity. It was a calculated operation, developed over time from a location near enough to allow for such preparation. Let's discuss the ransom demand, as it holds a clue that connects all the pieces to one vital question. KVA's Mary Coleman, who saw the note sent to her station, verified on air that it included a sum of money, a time limit, and details only the kidnapper could possess. Harvey Levin of TMZ provided more information. He reported the letter mentioned NY's Apple Watch, but the FBI wasn't focused on the watch itself. It was all about the location. The demand detailed the watch's exact, non-obvious placement within her residence, so precise that detectives saw it as a sign of credibility. What she had on that evening, the state of her house, the Apple Watch's specific spot. You're aware of these things because you've been nearby, because you've gained entry, because the link between Nancy's captor and NY's life is far deeper than what is visible from the street. A nearby staging point offers more than just concealment. It offers closeness. And that closeness, maintained for weeks, yields the exact information found in the demand. And while all of this unfolds, the very person leading this public investigation is battling for his career. Sheriff Chris Nanos of Puma County faces an official recall petition submitted to the Puma County Elections Department on March 12, 2026. The effort's organizer, Daniel Boudier, a Republican congressional hopeful, must gather over 120,000 valid signatures in 120 days to force a recall election. But the recall is just the tip of the iceberg. The story underneath is far more troubling. The Arizona Republic revealed Nanos grossly misrepresented his professional background on his official resume. Internal records from the El Paso police show he had 26 disciplinary marks against him in 5 years, with accusations of excessive force, firing a weapon, off-duty gambling, insubordination, and making threats. He was suspended 8 times over 6 years, for a total of 37 days. The files also confirm he left the El Paso PD in 1982, 2 years sooner than he claimed, and that he resigned instead of being fired. The Puma County Sheriff's Department first dismissed press inquiries on the matter as a smear campaign. After the story broke, the department quietly amended the resume, labeling the issues as administrative and clerical mistakes. Puma County Supervisor Matt Hines, a Democrat like Nanos, was blunt. He accused Nanos of defrauding the people of Pima County for 4 decades and demanded he step down. Then things took a turn for the worse inside his own department. Sergeant Aaron Cross, head of the Puma County Deputies Organization, the department's primary labor union, announced his personal support for the recall, speaking as a private citizen. Cross stated that deputies felt humiliated by Nanos's management of the Guthrie case, pointing to claims the department sometimes denied the FBI access to evidence, released information that was later retracted, and failed to properly secure the crime scene in the crucial first days. Cross says that department morale has never been lower. Today, March 24, 2026, the Puma County Board of Supervisors will convene to scrutinize Nanos's work history, including accusations he perjured himself in a December deposition about ever being suspended. Here is why this is about more than just politics. Nanos is the gatekeeper of what the public learns about this case. He has the final say on what to confirm, what to deny, and what to keep quiet. His integrity as a law enforcement figure is now being questioned, not by pundits, but by his own officers. As you hear what Nanos says about this case from now on, you have a concrete reason to view that information with skepticism alongside everything else. Let's put together all the verified pieces. The FBI possesses the doorbell camera video. They possess thumbnails from motion-sensing cameras aimed at NY's pool, backyard, and side yard, which show various workers and family in the weeks before her abduction. On the night she was taken, those exact cameras recorded absolutely nothing. Sources with knowledge of the case called that fact, and the OSON report consciously chose this word, odd. The cameras were fine before and after. They just failed on the one night that counted. They possess a blood DNA sample confirmed to be Nancy's. They've moved to forensic genetic genealogy after initial database queries yielded no matches. Nanos has conceded the DNA is mixed, possibly with genetic traces from several people, which has made it harder to process. They possess ransom letters with internal details the FBI finds very significant. They have the names of various contractors and construction crews working in the vicinity. Authorities are intensely looking into the neighbor who moved out before February 1st and the tenants who vacated later. They also have a statement from Aldine Meister about a strange man watching Nancy's home 3 weeks prior. But one thing is missing from the public view: an arrest. Earlier today, ex-FBI agent Jennifer Kafundifer questioned on X whether authorities want public help given their secretive methods. This very conflict between keeping the case quiet versus needing public input is a genuine, unsolved problem. A different perspective came from retired FBI agent Steve Moore. He explained to Brian Enton that feds returning to an area 6 weeks later isn't a sign of being lost. Instead, it suggests they're validating a precise theory by checking it with actual residents. From the very start, that theory has remained the same. This act was deliberate. Nancy's captor singled her out. Sheriff Nanos put it bluntly to NBC News, stating they believe they know the motive and that it was personal. Assuming the act was intentional, The person responsible either knew Nancy or was so familiar with the neighborhood it amounted to the same thing. The Bureau is asking who was living in the adjacent house. They want to know about local workers who left just before February 1st and who vanished soon after. This is not backtracking. They are honing in. Here's what to look for next. See if the neighbor who moved before February 1st or the tenants who left after are officially linked to the case. Watch for any suspects or persons of interest with connections to that neighborhood in January. Pay attention to what emerges from today's supervisor meeting on the sheriff, as it could change the investigation's leadership, and look to see if the FBI makes a direct public plea for information from anyone who was in the Catalina foothills area during January and early February. It has been 52 days since Nancy Guthrie vanished. Her family stated this weekend, "Grief is impossible for us. All we have is pain and questions." The total reward is $1.2 million. $1 million from the Guthrie family, $100,000 from the FBI, and $100,000 from the 88 crime tip line. The number to call is 1-800-CALL-FBI. Tips can also be sent to tips.fbi.gov. If you were around the Catalina foothills in January or the start of February, if you had a job there, if you know someone who did, or if you noticed something odd near Nancy's street and dismissed it, please make that call. It does not have to be something dramatic. The witness who breaks this case open might just be the person who saw a simple thing that was completely out of place. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the staging area was the empty house, the rental, or perhaps both? Who do you believe the Bureau is closing in on? Because this case is far from cold. This investigation hasn't stalled. It is getting closer. Our mother was snatched from her bed in the middle of the night, and every single hour, minute, and second since then, every long night has been pure agony of fearing for her, worrying about her, aching for her, and most of all, just missing her. Just simply missing her. We know millions of you have been praying. Prayers have been pouring in from people of every belief and those with none. They are hoping for her to come back, and we can feel that energy. Please, don't stop. Our faith is strong. We are holding on to hope for a miracle. We still have faith that she is able to return to us. It is a desperate hope. My sister says we are fanning the last embers of hope. We also must face the chance that she is gone, that she has already left us. She could have already returned to the God that she treasured, and is now with her own mother in heaven, and father, and her beloved brother Pierce, and our own dad. If that is God's will for her, then we must find peace with it. But we have to know her whereabouts. She must be returned to us. Someone has information that can lead her home. Some person knows. We implore you to step forward with what you know. We're also conscious that we are not unique in this kind of tragedy. We understand countless families have been through this terrible uncertainty. It is our sincere hope that the focus which our mother and our family have received will be shared with all families like our own who are suffering and require prayers and aid. So we ask, if this message finds you, if you've been hesitant and unsure, let this be your reason to finally come forward, to share the information you have, and help us return our treasured mom home, allowing us to have either a wonderful, miraculous reunion, or to commemorate the incredible, brave, bold, and dignified existence that she led. Please, be a beacon in the shadows. Thank you. As of now, the investigation remains active, but far from resolved. Detectives are zeroing in on overlooked details, revisiting timelines, and reanalyzing key evidence that may have been underestimated in the early days. One small clue, once dismissed, is now drawing intense scrutiny. Someone knows more than they've said. Someone was there. And with each passing day, the pressure builds. This is no longer just a missing piece. It's a race against time. Because the truth isn't gone. It's waiting. And when it surfaces, it could change everything.